Heyo, it's Shanti. Welcome to the Shanti Show. I'm here with. Can you introduce yourself?
Oh,
please?
sure. Yeah. I'm Eli Savit, and I'm the prosecutor for Washtenaw County.
Lovely. Thank you for coming to speak with us. I hear you graduated from Pioneer.
I did. 2001. So increasingly ancient history, but yep.
When I was born in 2001.
Okay. All right. So you didn't see our 1999 state championship basketball team?
I probably did not. Most definitely did not. 100% did not.
Oh, we had some squads. So
Okay. Man, ask how old you are.
41 years old.
41. Shout out.
Yep.
Okay, so I wanted to begin this with a exercise. You're probably familiar. It's called Roses, Buds, and Thorns.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to just know about this position you're in right now. And so basically, roses is something that you like, something that you enjoy. A bud is something that could get better. And a thorn is it's something that maybe you could live without, you know?
Sure. So before I get into this, I'll just talk a little bit about the job of prosecuting attorney.
Okay.
It's an elected position, and I'm a lawyer. And what we do is we make decisions and prosecute every criminal case, every violation of state law effectively that occurs in Washtenaw County. So that ranges from things that are, more minor, somebody shoplifts from a store, all the way up to homicides. And what we try to do in the prosecutor's office under my administration is we really try to mend harm in the community to the extent possible and put people back on the right track to succeed, right? Somebody comes through the criminal legal system. We don't necessarily need to ruin their lives. There needs to be accountability, but we're not trying to, send people to jail for really minor offenses. If people can get help, if we can facilitate that, that's something that we try to do. Now, obviously, for more serious stuff, your homicide, you're going to go to prison, right?
Sure. Understandable.
So, with that said, I'd say the roses, I've been in office for 4 years. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is actually working on expungements. One of the things that we've been able to do with our partners is to help people expunge old criminal records that they're now legally eligible to get cleared, right? We've helped over 1,000 people with that process, together with our partners at the Public Defender's Office, the Sheriff's Office, Michigan Advocacy Program, which provides free legal representation for people. And that's a rose because it really gives us an opportunity to see people when they've had some contact with the system in the past and to see how they've turned their lives around, right? They'll come in, they'll be seeking to clear an old criminal record because they want to get a job and they're eligible to get the job, but they got to clear that criminal record first. Or maybe they've started a family, right? And they want to get more involved in their kids' schools and they want to clear that old criminal record. And seeing people that have taken the right path, right? People that have gotten in some trouble, have taken the right path, turned their lives around, and now we're able to help them continue on that journey, continue by clearing their old criminal record. That's a real rose.
So why you lock up my brother? God dang.
I don't know who your brother is.
Come on now, why you lock him up?
And I can't talk about particular cases.
Come on now, I'm gonna be a real nigga. I'm gonna get so much hood points for this right now. If I just start saying shit like that, I'm gonna get so much hood points.
That's fair enough.
Goddamn, you want some drink?
I'm good. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you.
No more.
The bud I'll say is we've started a number of new programs where somebody comes into the system, right? Maybe they're accused of a lower level offense, right? And a lot of times people need mental health treatment. They may need substance use treatment. There's something else going on in their lives, right? And what we try to do is we set up these programs where if you do the right things, if you get help, if you could get treatment, we don't got to send you to jail. We don't even have to necessarily put you on probation. We just want you to get the help that you need, right? And if you do all of that and you do it successfully, we are able to say, okay, we're not going to move forward with charges. You'll emerge at the other end without that criminal record. We built these programs. They've been really successful. They've got about a 95% success rate. And I call it a bud because what I really want to do is continue to expand on these programs. Everybody wants to keep our community safe, right? We don't want to do it in a way that ruins people's lives. These programs are successful, and I'm hoping we can continue to expand them. The thorn, I'll say honestly, is that the stuff that keeps me up at night is gun violence in our community, right? Job of the prosecutor means that we hear about and we ultimately prosecute cases involving gun violence, and far too many people are losing their lives senselessly due to gun violence, being seriously injured because of gun violence. Obviously, as prosecutors, we see this on the back end, right? And we'll prosecute the case. If you shoot at somebody, you can expect to go away. There's no question about that. But I don't take any particular joy in doing that because, in a case of a homicide, it's two people's lives that are irreparably changed, right? One is a person that's dead, of course, right? And the other is a person that's going to prison, often a young person, for close to the rest of their lives, right? So that's a thorn. It's painful to see in our community. We do our jobs as prosecutors, but it's something that we're really hoping to work with community partners. I know we got a lot of great ones here in Washtenaw County to help prevent, so that we don't have to charge those cases. We don't have to put somebody in prison, and there's not somebody else on the ground.
You being a district attorney, can you talk a little bit about, remember we was at that NWC thing? Can you talk about why this gun violence happens? Because as you see, like in the Black community, we see that a lot more.
Yeah, and I think anybody, honestly, that tells you there's like one reason that gun violence is happening, is fooling you, right? There's a number of factors that go into gun violence. One is easy access to guns, right? Gun violence doesn't happen without a gun. That sounds simple, right? But, when I was growing up, people got in fights, people got in altercations, right? May have ended in a verbal altercation, people arguing, may have ended in a black
We 2000 babies, everybody saying this. We shoot niggas.
Yeah, well, and that is something that's led to a lot of tragedy. And right, without a gun in that situation, maybe somebody ends up hurt. Maybe their feelings end up hurt. Maybe they end up physically.
You know what I heard?
But without that gun.
You know what I heard this? I don't know. When you went back to high school in 2001, was it different? Like, can you fight somebody and lose? Because I think it's the public the public humiliation. Like, if we get into a fight and I lose, it's almost immediately that person is gonna shoot the other person. Like, it's like immediately. Like, if that person loses, like, it's shootout.
I'll tell you this. What I do think has changed since I was in high school is there's social media now, right? I didn't grow up with social media. So kids got in fights when I was in high school, right? And look, I'm not gonna lie, when somebody lost a fight, people would say things, right?
Of course.
Now what you see, but when I was in high school, right, back in 2001, or late 90s, 2001, you'd go home, right? Maybe you'd have a weekend. It wouldn't be the constant buzz on social media around what happened. And people would sort of cool off. By the next Monday, people would have more or less forgotten that. Where I do think, and I mean, you guys are obviously much younger than me, but where I do think it's different from when I'm growing up.
How fucking old are you?
I'm 41. Yeah. Where I do think it's different from when I was growing up is now you've got this constant on social media with people going back and forth and continuing to escalate a conflict, which is something that we just didn't have. We didn't have easy access to social media on our phones when I was growing up. We had that time to sort of chill out, for things to get a little bit more smoothed over. Now you see like constant escalation. I'm sure you guys can vouch for this. And I think that has the effect of making it so that conflicts can die down, and they do sometimes end in tragedy.
See, look, we're gonna come up with a solution on this goddamn cause. See, look, Rock, it was a Rico. It was a dude. He just sat there. He's gonna go to prison for 2 years. He said the exact same thing. He said, man, if y'all stop all this being in people's faces, he said dissing. And so we can get to the music right now. He said, if y'all just stop the dissing and all the public disrespect y'all do to these people, he said even the murders can get died down, but y'all just keep escalating it with yeah, I killed your brother. Get up. Tell him to get up. And then he dead. So you telling him to get up. You know what I mean? So things like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this real quick.
Yeah.
In New York City, they got some, I think the same dude that does your exact same position. He's talking about jury music. Do you think the music has anything to do with it?
I don't know who said that in New York City. I don't really. I'll tell you the truth. They've been talking about music and music having bad effects on young people and leading to violence since I was in high school. That's not new, right? Like when I was in high school, you had Tupac, Biggie, right? I mean, like there was music that a lot of people would say, like, well, this music is influencing and causing violence. I think people are smart enough. I think young people are smart enough to be able to separate art from reality. So I don't think that music is a big driver of it. What I will say, though, is, if it is music where, you're talking back and forth about a particular person, right?
Mhm.
And you're on camera rapping and throwing down a challenge or something like that towards somebody else, a diss track or what have you, then that can fuel specific escalations. But I don't think broadly the fact that people are listening to particular types of music or anything like that really has any impact. People have been talking about, the music the young people are listening to since well before I was born, right? I mean, you go back to the 1960s, people were saying jazz was causing bad behavior back in the 20s.
That's like something like
Yeah. So I don't really buy into that.
Let's talk about the heavy shit, because I don't probably got that much time. Let's talk about the heavy shit. All right. You're a Jewish man.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that affects the way you work? Because I ain't gonna lie, it was do you know the disparity between Jewish people and black people that's going on right now? Even that thing that Kanye West did. And then I'm starting to look at it even more as I go on. I was like, damn, all the people in power is Jewish. That be fucking niggas up, be Jewish. So do you have anything what is that? Do you see it, or what do you think about it?
I don't think that my faith is something that impacts my ability to do my job. I don't think anybody's faith is something that impacts their ability to do their job. Obviously, we have, a number of faiths in this country, right? Jewish, Muslim, Christian, other Hindu, other faiths. And, however you're raised, the values you're raised with certainly influence your, I think how you view the world, the careers that you go into. But, I think that my primary obligation, and all of our prosecutors' primary obligation, is to the law as written in the United States of America, where we have separation between church and state.
You don't think Jewish be fucking over the blacks?
I do not.
Damn, all right, for sure. Because I don't know, it's even what's that one dude, the main Muslim dude, Muhammad Ali dude? He said even in we get a lot of music people. So even in the music industry, it's the Jewish man, he sells you, first he signs you the record deal, and then another Jewish man, he sells you a chain for the look, and then they're all brothers, and then another Jewish man, he's your manager, and then another Jewish man, so it's oh my goodness, and then another Jewish man, he's the producer of the movie, and then another, it's oh my goodness, and then he made it all make sense, it's one big ass circle.
Yeah. Look, and I'll say, I think none of that is helpful to the community that we want to build, right? Trying to divide us up by race or trying to divide us up by religion, anything like that, it's not helpful. Obviously, there's more anti-Semitism, there's more racism right now. If you look at the national level, a lot of communities are under fire. And what people try to do in a lot of these cases, people that want to divide communities, is they spread this type of message that this community is against your community and the like. We need to move above that. We need to move beyond that and not talk about various communities harming other communities. We need to work together for collective freedom, right? Because there's more that unites us than that divides us. So I really think that type of rhetoric is not helpful to the community that we want to build.
Understood. And then last thing, I got written down right now. So it's a lot of people, tell me what your haters be talking about. I don't understand. I'm late to you, my G. I ain't gonna lie. A lot of people say, oh, he started off Eli. Oh, nah, he fake. Eli. Oh, nah, he fake. And I was like, every time I see this dude, it's nothing, we cool. And I was like, yeah, you cool. You answer my question, NAACP. I didn't know you was going to answer right there. You answered it real quick. And I ain't say it as nice as I said right now. So it was I was like, you seem cool. And it's nah, he fake. And I was like, seem real to me. Do you know what those people are talking about? Anything? Did you change anything through your race in office, or any the way you moved or the way you ran, or your views?
Nope. And you can read all our policies. They're all on our website. I will say, look, my position as a prosecutor means that sometimes people aren't going to be happy with you, right? If somebody goes out there and they commit a crime and we think that person poses a threat to the community, right? We're going to prosecute them. That's a job, right? That's our job, to keep the community safe. And so this is not a job where you're going to make friends with everybody, right?
Oh my goodness! It was one thing everybody was pissed at you about. I remember it was the Free Palestine people. The Free Palestine, they was like, "Oh man, Eli Savit, he did this," and I was like, and they say because you arrested all the people at the Diag or some shit like that, or you prosecuted them.
So we didn't arrest anybody. We don't arrest people, right?
Yeah, it was something you did something with them. What
I don't talk about that very broadly because there's still cases going on. But there was an incident in November in which there was a protest at the University of Michigan's administrative building, and a number of students did a sit-in in the president's office, right? They ran past officers. The building was locked at the time, everything like that. We generally think that if it's a peaceful, nonviolent sit-in, right, even if it breaks some laws, that we're not going to, we don't think the criminal legal system is the right answer for that. Not saying that the university can't impose discipline or, what have you, but it doesn't need to result in criminal charges. And so we got a number of charge requests, and we declined to prosecute several dozen of them because there was no evidence of violence, no evidence of property destruction, anything like that. Whether you're protesting or not, if you physically assault somebody, if you destroy property intentionally, it doesn't matter why you're doing it. That's something that we still have to move forward on. It doesn't necessarily mean people are going to go to jail for it or anything like that. But, if you're assaulting somebody because you're mad about a political issue, we can't view whether we agree with you on that political issue or not when deciding whether to bring charges. So the only charges that we brought in those cases were 4 involving assaultive behavior, right? And that's the same thing we would do with anybody that assaulted somebody else.
What's assaultive behavior?
Assaultive behavior means, assault is basically we're using physical force against somebody, right? So it can be anything from, slamming into somebody with your body to punching somebody. And then in more serious cases, I'm not saying there were these cases, assault can take place with a weapon. So,
understood.
So that's how we've done it. And that's totally consistent with what I've always said.
You worked with Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I did. Yep.
How was she?
Well, so early on in my career, I had the opportunity to clerk for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the U.S. Supreme Court. And she was a real mentor of mine. It was for a year. That's how long these clerkships last. And I learned a lot. She's somebody that was a fighter for civil rights, for equal justice for everybody. But the one thing that always stuck with me is she knew that the way that the law operates has real meaningful impacts on people's lives, right? It's not just words on paper. Right. That's obviously true in the criminal system where you're talking about somebody's freedom and community safety, right? But it's also true on things like that we don't actually deal with in the prosecutor's office, but are still tremendously important. Things like landlord-tenant, right? That's somebody's roof over their head, right? Things like child support, right? I mean, that's somebody's livelihood. It's also whether a kid's going to be able to be provided for. Even things like family law, child custody, right? I mean, whether you get to see your kids or not, the law has a real impact on the most profound things that we do in our lives, the most meaningful things. And that's something she always kept front and center, and that's something I've always tried to keep with me.
Lovely. When you're, prosecuting folks, how do you how do you see remorse? What are signs of remorse that you see? So if you're gonna be okay, maybe you deserve a little lighter case, or nah, you really don't really care, so let me give you this.
Yeah. And I'll say this, certainly if you're willing to take accountability for what you did wrong, that's something that's going to influence how we think it's appropriate to move forward with a case. If you're somebody that says, I don't care, I'll do it again, right? Then we got to be worried about you doing what you said, right? Going out and doing whatever it was again. If you're somebody that says, okay, I understand, maybe I need counseling, right? Maybe this was a result of unaddressed anger. Maybe what was going on is I got mental health issues or I got substance use issues, right? And I'm going to try to get help. I'm going to try to get treatment. And this can be things ranging from, like a drunk driving, right? What we want to see is not necessarily you to go to prison or jail for that, but you probably got a problem, right? And maybe you've got to do alcohol counseling if you've got a drinking problem, right? We've got a lot of people that are dealing with substance use. And if they can come to us and they say, I've already entered a substance use program, then yeah, we say, okay, you're on the right path, right? And it's certainly going to influence how we seek to have that case resolved.
Kendrick or Drake?
Kendrick.
Damn. Fuck that. You just saying what everybody, and he changes mind every single time somebody hop on this car. You said Drake, you would have said Drake.
No, I mean. I'm
talking about him.
Got it.
But then, goddamn it. All right, why you said Kendrick?
I think because he's winning the battle, and the fact that Not Like Us is the only thing that's on the radio these days demonstrates just how much he's winning by.
Okay. All right, if somebody wanted to grow up and they wanted to be like Eli Savit, what would you say?
So if you want to be a lawyer, right?
Now they want to be like you. They want to, I like how you did this. If you got your number one Dave fan, A1 stands. So what would you want somebody to do to be like you?
So first thing is try to get exposure to what we actually do, right? And I love having interns in our office, right? We have college interns, we have interns that have helped us out there in high school. So reach out and see if you can get in our office and get more of a sense of what we do. If you admire the career path that I've had and the work that we're doing, obviously I'm a lawyer. You got to go to law school. The one thing I'll say about law school that's like super important is learning how to write well. That's like the number one thing that you can do in high school and college to get ready for law school. And so much of law is reading and writing. So focus on that. And then the other thing is, as you move forward in your career, if you become a lawyer, take the path that maybe is not necessarily going to lead to the most money, but if your heart is in the community, take the path that's going to lead to serving the community. There's a number of ways you can do that, right? You can run for office like I did, right? You can do legal services and help people directly dealing with some of these cases that we talked about, even things like landlord-tenant, right? That's a tremendously important thing. Expungements, they do great work on that. So there's a number of paths, but for a young person right now, say get exposure. We're happy to provide that to the extent we can in our office, and then focus on reading and writing because that's the pathway into law.
Close your eyes real quick. Think about 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Think about 10 years ago, 31-year-old Eli. If you got to tell your 31-year-old Eli something, what would you tell him? Advice for the next 10 years.
Expect the unexpected.
And why do you say that?
10 years ago, I was still living in Washington, D.C. 10 years ago, actually, I was just about to start my clerkship for Justice Ginsburg.
What?
I was just about to start working for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I was living in D.C., just about to start that job.
Who the fuck is Ruth?
RBG, Secretary
Supreme Court Justice.
Supreme Court, there
Yep.
you go.
Oh, Supreme Court?
Yeah, on the United States
Oh, you
Supreme
did
Court.
big things.
Yeah.
Good job, Nick.
And I wouldn't have thought at that moment that my path would lead here. I didn't have a career path set out to try to become the Washtenaw County prosecutor. I took doors that opened to me. I took jobs and career opportunities that I thought I would do the most good in, and they were unexpected, right? And so, I had a lot of angst about that, right? Because I turned down jobs at firms and a lot of money and everything like that. But I'm happy with where I am now. I love serving this community. And so what I tell myself 10 years ago is just expect the unexpected and take the doors that open to you.
And Eli, let's say you're a tall man. Let's say when you're a shriveling old Jewish man and people think you cast spells on them and just, you're 61 years old. How do you think life is going to be? What do you see your old life being?
Well, I'm hoping that 61 years old is not actually that old. We got
That's old, man.
It's old. It's old to you guys, but
That's
we got
old, my nigga.
Yeah, but it's not 81, right? So look, I hope to still be working when I'm 61 years old, and not as shriveled as you're saying.
Oh my fucking goodness. Oh, okay.
That's 20 years from now.
I ain't gonna lie.
I'm not trying to be shriveled in 20 years.
Right, look, I'm gonna ask this because I think this should don't you know it's a cap to like when you could be president, when you could be certain roles and stuff like that. I think it should be like a cap too. It's a young cap, but I think it should be an old cap too. What do you think the old cap should be, if there should be one? Because I feel like y'all gotta like some things. Even you gotta think when you're a 61-year-old, you're gonna be a little bit more detached to like some of the reasons why these young people do these crimes and stuff like that. I know you probably still in the community like that, but then you probably still got younger siblings or younger nieces or nephews. You're gonna probably see, that's why they did that because. But you're not even gonna be too much attached to the community. I think right now in the political world, like in the United States, we got to do something to get the old people the fuck out. And I think 61, like 65, especially because you retired. That's retirement age. You know what I mean? 65 is retirement. I say that because I meant like 65 because 65 is retirement age. I thought you would hang it up. I didn't. I'm thinking, do you think it should be at cap? And if so, what cap?
I don't think that there's a specific year that I can tell you that I think there should be a cap on, but I do agree, broadly speaking, that, there comes a point in everybody's life where they're slowing down, right?
You talk about 80, that's Joe Biden. That's
81 years old, right? If he would have run for re-election, he would have been 86. He stepped down. He opted not to run again, and I think that's a responsibility that people should take seriously to pass the torch to the next generation. Because look, I generally agree with you. We need more young people in politics and leadership positions because ultimately the decisions that are being made in government, in politics, they're the ones that are going to affect you guys much more than it is me, right? Because you're 20 years younger than me.
How come you don't think like they're doing it? That's the one thing about it.
That's a good question. I think it's a really good question. I think one reason is just because for a human being, it's hard to admit when you've gotten old, right? I still try to think of myself. I'm solidly middle-aged. I'm 41. I know that, right?
What's old to you?
What's old to me? That's the thing is old keeps getting older. The older you get, the older old is. So you said 61. You're like 61 is so old. I'm like 61.
No, when I turn 30, when I turn 30, I'm gonna be old and I'm start whipping these niggas' asses. I'm gonna be like, bitch, respect your elders, ho.
I'm putting this on the record right now. You can go back and watch this when you're 30 years old. When you're 30 years old, you're gonna not say you're old anymore.
I'm gonna be like, I'm an old ass nigga, you better lick.
But in seriousness, right? I mean, there is a point where you just are old, right? And you're slowing down. And I think it's hard from a human perspective to admit that to yourself, right? And so I think that's partially why you don't see older leaders stepping down, because it means wrestling with the fact that you're closer to death, right?
I ain't gonna lie, legally, in a legal standpoint, a lot of people don't know how to do this. If you was to put that law in place, how would that law go to be in place?
Well, if you're talking about something like a federal office,
put a cap in there.
Yeah, you'd need to amend the Constitution. You need to change the U.S. Constitution
for federal.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. What about like local and
so if it's state or local, depending on how the state system is set up, you can impose those caps just by passing a law through the legislature. Some states actually do have these age caps. For example, we have an age cap for judge, right? So you can't be you can't be elected a judge if you're past a certain age, and a lot of states have those for judges in particular. So it just means changing the law.
Let's ask a financial question real quick. You got your last $100. How you gonna flip it?
How am I gonna flip it?
Yeah, because I don't know. I see you guys like you had to run when you was running. I remember you was doing your run. It was like I take y'all as a business. Political stuff is kind of like business savvy. So I take y'all as a little bit entrepreneurs in a little bit of a sense. So if you had $100, how would you flip it? You on your last 100.
So by flip it, you mean like how am I gonna make that grow, right?
Yeah, it's your last 100. What you doing? Imagine if everything, I look at the most wise wisdom I had is like, I look at the homeless person on the street, is that you can be just like that person. If you walk out of here right now, God forbid, but then your bank account goes zip, zip, zoop, zoop, and this go here, and this go here, and then boom, you got that last hundo with you and your wife and everybody, damn.
Honestly, if I had my last $100, because the skill that I have that's most marketable is being a lawyer, right? And I'm assuming I don't have my current job in this scenario, right?
Now you got banned from the bar or some other words I heard from movies.
I'm not a lawyer anymore. Okay. Well, I think I still spend it to advertise, and I say, I can't be a lawyer. But what I'm gonna do is, man, it's a great question. You kind of stumped me on this. Here's what I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna do. My previous career before I was a lawyer, I was actually a teacher. I was an 8th grade teacher, and so I think that if I got banned from doing law, if I can't do law anymore, right? My most marketable skill that I have is to be an educator. And so I think I'd take that 100, I'd hang up a shingle, I'd do some advertising, and I'd say, I can tutor your kids, right? And try to make money that way and try building it back up.
What'd you teach at?
Taught in New York City public schools. Taught 8th grade U.S. history.
Oh shoot, you still got New York ties?
Do I still got New York what?
Ties, like people you know in New York?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go there August 14th.
Oh, nice. Enjoy. Where are you going?
I'm going to somewhere like Newark. It's close.
Oh, Newark. Okay, so that's New Jersey. So that's close to New York City.
Nah, I got the flight is gonna go to New York, but it's like north. I think my Airbnb is in north.
Oh, got it.
It's all New York to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
From outsiders that don't know New York, it's all New York. We don't know the barrels and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask you about just your history in childcare and just like that for you. What is something that you learned from that, and why did you transfer from that to being a lawyer?
Yeah. So one of the things that actually is most relevant to my career now is when I was when I was teaching,
Mhm.
I had a lot of kids whose families were justice involved, right?
Okay.
And I saw how that can affect young people, right? Because when you, as a justice system, make the choice to put somebody behind bars, right, to separate them from their families, that doesn't just affect them, right? It affects their kids, it affects their families, and it can have really intergenerational effects. And the seriousness of that has never been lost on me because I saw some of the kids, whose parents were justice involved and how it was impacting them. It's one of the things that we've tried to build up here, those alternatives to incarceration. So we're not separating people needlessly from their families. Again, if there's a community safety threat, you got to do what you got to do. But if there's another path there, if we can get people back on the right path and allow them to be able to provide for their families, allow them to have a job and provide housing and a stable environment for their kids, we break a lot of the cycle of incarceration. So that's something that, I didn't know it at the time, but it's always stuck with me. And it's certainly impacted how we try to move in the prosecutor's office here.
Yeah, that brings up the school to prison pipeline. How prevalent is that? Is it like I don't know, like because I think you're kind of still in that system, right? Like even as of now, as like being a lawyer, you're still kind of like embedded into this school to prison pipeline. Like first of all, I want to ask you if you acknowledge it to exist at all.
100% it exists. There's no question that it exists, and it disproportionately affects Black people and particularly Black men, right? I'll say this. I grew up, we talked about, I went to Pioneer and I was not an angel when I was a kid, right? I got in trouble. I did things that teenagers are going to do, right? Nothing too bad, right? But, may have drank underage, right? May have gotten in some fights.
We're going to see about the documentary.
Things like that, right?
Surviving
statute
Eli.
Statute of limitations passed.
Surviving Eli. It was so terrible. You looked at me for too long.
But what I think is I got the benefit of the doubt. And I know that I got the benefit of the doubt because of how I look, right? Because I grew up in Ann Arbor, because I'm a white man, right? And that was, sort of understood as just being normal adolescent behavior. And I never went into the juvenile system, right? For some of this minor stuff, right? I'm not saying that like when young people screw up, there shouldn't be consequences, right? But those consequences can be imposed at home, right? Or through the school, right? They don't necessarily have to go through the criminal legal system. Now, obviously there's a point at which, you're stealing cars or you're firing guns. That's serious criminal activity. You got to do it something at that point. Sure. But that's sort of normal stuff, right? That teenagers have been doing for forever. Everybody should get the same benefit of the doubt that people that look like me got, right? And so that's part of what we try to do in the prosecutor's office, is to check that school to prison pipeline. Because once you get in the system, it can often really disrupt your life in a way that things escalate, right? So I'm not trying to, for a whole host of things. You can look at our juvenile justice policy. We're not saying there shouldn't be any consequences, but if kids get in a fight in the hallway in 8th grade, right? That happens, right? I'm not saying it's a good thing. Don't fight, right? But the school can deal with that, right? It's normal. It doesn't have to go in the criminal system unless there's really serious circumstances, like it involved a weapon or something like that. So that's how we deal with these things, and then we try to provide off ramps when people do end up in the juvenile system, so they don't end up even with a juvenile record. If they need help, they're dealing with substance use, mental health issues, whatever. Get those services, and you can emerge on the other end with a clear record.
You driving a train, conductor of a train. You get, you can't see it. They just enter it in. They tell you what's ahead. Hey, you got 2 railroad tracks ahead right now. On one side is somebody you very love. I don't know who you love. Probably you married, right? You got a wife, right? Right, somebody you married to, or somebody you love very dearly. Some people don't love their wives like that. But and then the other side, you got 20 people. Which side you going to? The 1 or the 20?
Yeah, no. So you're a philosopher, huh? This is
I want people to understand you like mental.
Yeah. So you're a philosopher, and I'm telling you, you're a philosopher because this is a classic philosophy problem, right? And the answer I think always has to be that you do the least harm to the greatest number of people, right? And so if that means
This nigga don't love his wife.
well, I'm not married. So
I thought you said you was married.
there's nobody on that track. So you actually made it pretty
I'm
easy.
talking about somebody you love though. Like,
but I think that we need rules set up in the society to where, I mean, if you're going to be hurting or possibly killing 19 other people, right? Those people have families too. They have loved ones as well, right? And so the right and moral choice, as painful as it might be, right, is to do the least harm to the greatest number of people.
So you're gonna hit the one person.
I think that's the only way that we can operate as a society.
Okay.
I want to know the signs that you saw is in person of the school of prison pipeline being portrayed when you were being a teacher.
Yeah. And so I was an 8th grade teacher, and the school in the South Bronx in New York City.
South Bronx.
Yep. And we absolutely had a gang issue in that particular school.
Okay.
But one of the things that you would see is we had law enforcement officers that were stationed at the school, right? You had to pass through metal detectors to get into the school every morning because there was a concern about gangs and weapons and the like. And you did see people, see kids, right? We're talking 13, 14-year-olds that, as a result, would get into the criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system from time to time. And, we're not even in high school yet, right? We're talking very, very early here, right? And that is the school to prison pipeline. Now, again, I'm not saying that like if there's serious gang violence or anything like that there's really an alternative, right? But you just look at that sort of atmosphere there, right? Of passing through the metal detectors, of having law enforcement present constantly. And when that's used for more minor things, like we were talking about, right? When it's not something serious, but it's a kid vaping or, getting in a, typical hallway fight, right? And that ends up in the criminal legal system. That's where I really think we need to think differently about things. And again, not say that we're not going to address it, but it can be addressed the way that it was addressed at my middle school, right? Or at my high school. Internally in the school, you can have in-school special, you could suspend somebody from their extracurriculars, like whatever. There can be consequences. It doesn't need to be in the judicial system if it's just normal sort of adolescent misbehavior.
Let me ask you this. Black boys, all them ADHD medication and pills and shit like that. Do you see, how do you think we can fix that? Or do you even see the problem?
I'm not a doctor, so I'm really hesitant to.
You was a teacher, and plus, you in the prosecutor office. I hear a lot of people when they go to talk to prisoners, the main question they ask: who has an IEP or who's had ADHD?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then who the fuck? Everybody will raise their hand and be like, "Oh yeah, I got diagnosed with ADHD." And then,
Sure. So what I will say, and this is in our juvenile justice policy and how we do things, is except in really extraordinary circumstances, if a young person is coming to us as a result of a diagnosed behavioral disability, right? We're presumptively not going to charge that case, right? Because if it's a disability, we should be dealing with that in a different way. Maybe it means medication needs to be adjusted. Maybe it means that there needs to be a different course of treatment. But if it's legitimately, if their actions were legitimately the result of a disability, we presumptively are not going to.
I'm talking about the motherfucker grows up, because I feel like the thing that happens, do you believe the thing happens as a kid? The ADHD and black boys and stuff like that?
Do I believe that it happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, sure.
Oh, I feel like you don't understand.
Yeah.
All right, check it out. So basically, as a kid, or a lot of black boys, as kids, they get diagnosed with ADHD and they get diagnosed with a whole bunch of things because the teacher doesn't understand them.
Oh, I see.
And then boom, even when I was a kid growing up, I remember I used to talk super, super duper fast.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, blah. And then I go home, my grandma and all my people from the South, they talk like, hey boy, go get it, go get that goddamn. But it was a cultural difference. So I feel like
I see what you're asking. So you're talking about overdiagnosis of disabilities, right?
Overall diagnosis.
Yeah. I think that's certainly an issue, and it's an important issue. And I will say a couple of things. One is, you mentioned it, right? I think sometimes people are not culturally aware. Educators are not culturally aware. Doctors are not culturally aware. That they're not aware that, just way of speaking. It's not a diagnosable disability. It's just how somebody grew up. The other thing, quite candidly, I'll say, is it's true across races, is I think adolescent boys get diagnosed with disabilities far more frequently than they need to be, because boys, and I saw this when I was teaching, they're disorganized. I was disorganized when I was 13 years old. I can't tell you how many times when I was a teacher, I would give out the little sort of tracking progress sheet, right? And say, like, here's your grade in this class. And a boy, it was always boys, right? They would come to me and be like, I did that assignment. What are you talking about? Like, why I got a 0 on that, right? And I'd say, I don't have it. You didn't turn it in. They'd say, I swear I did it. And they describe the assignment to me. And they describe what they said. And I'd say, okay, go look at the bottom of your backpack, right? Or go look at the bottom of your desk. And they'd, 9 times out of 10, they'd find it, right? Because that's just sort of, where your sort of developmental mental state is when you're 13 years old. You're not as organized, right? And I think it's particularly true for boys, honestly. Now, the wrong thing to do in that circumstance is say that there's something wrong with this kid, right? Maybe they need reminders about, like, how to turn in their assignments and be organized. That should be a teaching moment, but we shouldn't just leap to, diagnosing them with a disability, putting them on medication, when in reality, that's just sort of like a normal stage of adolescent development, particularly for boys. And I think, we do need to be more understanding of that.
For sure. I want to know, like, so just, you said South Bronx, you taught in South Bronx. I would like to know ways to help those folks that, like, like you said, there's gang violence or gangs in the school. Just ways to help those folks, get somewhere, like, obviously get out of the world that they're sometimes could be trapped in. Like, what are things, processes, or programs, things implemented to, save these folks from...
This nigga would know? How the fuck would he know? He didn't grow up like that. This is a rich white man.
So he taught in South Bronx. Were you listening?
Yeah, he taught, man. Do you know?
I do know. I do know some things, right? And one thing that I think is really important is providing access to opportunity, right? One of the things that, if you grow up more privileged, you grow up like I grew up, right? You're always going to have access to these sort of like field trips, enrichment opportunities, right? In the summertime, after school, class trips, things like that, right? That provide a sense of what's out there, right? And in a lot of parts of the country, kids don't have that, right? They don't have things to do. They don't have productive things to do. They don't have exposure to different types of careers. I'm not just talking about, college, but certainly college, but also like careers in the trades, right? Good paying jobs, things like that. They don't have an opportunity for exposure there. And we need more opportunities. We need more access to opportunity for a big part of this country, not just in New York City, but here in Michigan too, right? And if we can build out those programs, we can provide access to opportunity. I think that goes a long way. And there's studies on this. There's studies that show that one of the biggest things that you can do, and the best thing you can do to reduce youth violence, right, is to provide after-school programs and job opportunities for high schoolers, right? Because if you're productively engaged, you're making some money, right, you're learning, you're not going to be just sitting around and, beefing on Instagram or whatever, right? So,
I understand. All right.
I do want to know if you've seen any situation in which, like, things went to the legal system and you believe that there could be things implemented to go other ways,
Absolutely.
The fuck did you just ask?
What?
What did you just ask?
He asked just to make sure I understand the question. He's asking, are there things that have like come into the criminal legal system where I think they could have been dealt with a different way?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see things like that pretty regularly, right? There's a lot of times that there will be just sort of minor disputes, for example, between neighbors, right? And it gets so heavy and so toxic. This person lives next door to you, lives in the apartment next to you, right? And they're going back and forth. And it's like, you guys just need to sit down, right? You guys need to sit down with each other and work this out. It doesn't need to be a crime. We talked about the juvenile justice stuff, right? And that's a whole host of cases that, can be dealt with in school, can be dealt with in the family, do not need criminal justice system involvement. If you look at, we talked about cases out of the university, right? And again, not saying that university can't impose consequences for X, Y, and Z, but you really don't need to push a lot of stuff into the criminal system. So there's a whole host of stuff where there's alternative mechanisms for accountability that don't necessarily need to involve the criminal legal system. And that's one of the jobs as prosecutor, is to make those decisions about what really needs to be in the justice system and what doesn't.
I honestly want to know because you've been on both sides of these systems. Like I honestly can see that you existed on both sides of the systems. So I want to know really a specific situation, and as much as you can tell me, honestly, but also in a moment where you're a teacher and be like, okay, this guy has to be sent to the legal system because this situation, like a specific situation, wasn't handled accordingly, or some way that you been on the other side and received a young troubled person and been like, yeah, I understand why you're here, but honestly, if I was in that teacher's position or if I was in this person's position of power that sent you here, I would probably do this.
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you this. When I was a teacher, I never made a referral. I never called law enforcement for something that happened in my classroom. I never did. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean there wouldn't have been situations where I might have, right? Obviously somebody is showing up with a weapon and using a weapon. Yeah, right. But I have fights in my classrooms, right? Nobody that teaches 8th grade probably is immune from that. I had kids that would lose their tempers, would throw stuff. I mean, and that could be dealt with in school. It could be dealt with school consequences. Be dealt with de-escalation. That was how I always tried to operate. I never called law enforcement once when I was a teacher. And you ask specific situations.
If people call in right now and they try to get that into office right now in Washtenaw, you're probably like, oh, that was bullshit. And you're probably would you be like, oh, that was bullshit?
I wouldn't say that.
You'll be like, oh my goodness.
We have a policy around
that could have
been. And so, for example,
I want to know this though. The people, for the teachers that do that BS, they do that bullshit and they bring it to law when it could have just easily been handled in class or something like that. Do you charge the person that even called in or brought it up? And if so, is there some law in place like that?
There's no charge there, right?
There's no charge there at all?
There's no law that's been violated. We can only bring charges if a law has.
We can't do anything about these Karens out here. They're in the basement right now. I think they're torturing that white man.
If what I'll say is, if there's a really false police report, right?
Yeah.
So if you make something up, if you lie to the police about somebody, then that can be charged, right? Making a false police report, that can be charged.
But calling the police for no reason for something that could have been easily handled.
Calling the police because for something that should have been handled differently is not a crime. It's not.
Some ideas.
I don't make the laws.
Nah, you put that one law in place. I think that was a good idea too for these crazy motherfuckers with the guns.
So
can you talk about that?
For who?
You did the one law with the crazy people with the guns. You say they can get their guns taken away.
Oh, well, the legislature passed that law.
Okay.
I testified in support of it. So just so people that are watching know what we're talking about, there's a new law in the state of Michigan. It's called the Extreme Risk Protection Order, or it's sometimes people refer to it as a red flag law. And what that law says is, if somebody is going through something, right? Let's say they're going through a mental health crisis, right? They've got delusions, or they're making violent threats, right? Or they're harming animals, or they're engaged in sort of domestic abuse, a whole host of things that can cause concern. And that person has a gun. Family members or roommates or partners, romantic partners, can file for an extreme risk protection order, which would take guns out of that person's hands for a period of 1 year. A court would order the guns to be removed from their hands. And the point of that, as you mentioned, is to prevent violence from occurring in the first place. So that's a new law. Hopefully people know about it. There's forms that are available on the court's website that you can use to file for one of those things. So if you know of somebody that is going through it, that is having a mental breakdown, is perhaps making threats or engaged in violent behavior, that has access to a gun, it's a way to get that gun out of that person's hands so that we don't have a tragedy that ultimately needs to be prosecuted.
All I'm saying, y'all better be careful. I'm going to call Eli on y'all.
The other thing I'll mention on that, and it's a new law. It went into effect earlier this year, but it also applies to suicides because we talk about gun violence. We talk a lot about people shooting each other. And obviously that's of tremendous importance, but the majority of suicide deaths or firearms deaths in this country are by suicide. So if somebody's going through a suicidal period, right, making suicidal statements and has access to a gun, please try to get that person help and
I'm gonna call
try to get that
Eli
gun
like, he got his
out of their
gun out
hands.
right now. He said he was gonna kill him. It's like, I'm on his ass. And then Eli gonna turn it to Batman. Because I know you Batman.
I am definitely not. I'm not rich enough to be Bruce Wayne.
I know you're Batman. See, that's the front. Who goes from New York City to fucking Washtenaw? That's the front. See, I got your ass.
I grew up here, so
See, I got your ass. Nigga, look at it. Just put the cape. Look at his. Look at him. Yeah, just look at him. Like, put the mask on his ass, and then boom. You see how tall this nigga is?
Is that Batman height?
Bro, come on now. I know you're Batman, so I'm gonna call Eli up. He's gonna get on your ass. He's gonna beat your ass at nighttime, and then see you in the court daytime.
Oh my goodness.
See, Eli just told me. Watching our prosecutor, this attorney, he just told me. Batman.
Is there any things implemented, like put in place to prevent, students from being wrongly accused of things? Like I feel like is there
Nigga, he just told you no.
Is there anything that you can do about that? It's like
You just say you don't make the laws, nigga.
Well, so here's what I'll say, right? If it's really a wrongful accusation, right? If it comes over to our office, we can ethically only bring cases that we believe can be proved up in court beyond a reasonable doubt.
Just answer that.
So if the evidence isn't there, we're not going to move forward with that case, right? Even if it's
Okay.
something that we would otherwise move forward with. The other thing, I did mention this before, if it's a false police report, right?
Mhm.
Somebody just makes something up on somebody else,
Yeah.
then that can be charged, right? If it's intentionally false. What can't be charged is like somebody that overreacts, right? Somebody that's like calls the police, because they're scared or whatever, and it really shouldn't have been something that required police involvement. But if you just lie and make something up and falsely accuse somebody, and we can prove that you did that, that is a crime. Filing a false police report is a crime.
You heard that Sanya? Did you see Sanya? The Sanya video?
I did.
All right, cool. What do you think about that?
It's absolutely horrific. I mean, I don't have words to describe how bad and disturbing and horrific it is. I
Can you explain
don't.
that to me?
Nigga, don't worry. Nigga, you know about the fucking video. Nigga, it's good.
So who?
We cool. We good. I'll tell you later. I'll show you later again. But basically, what would you do if that was in Washtenaw County? I need to know.
Well, the first thing we'd do, and we have a policy on this, but if it happened in Washtenaw County as one of our law enforcement agencies, we'd seek immediately the appointment of a special prosecutor and come in from outside, investigate, prosecute that case, because you do not want, generally, the local prosecutor trying to prosecute cases involving violence with local police. There's too many interactions there, right? You have to work with police day in and day out. So you want a special prosecutor appointed that is outside of the county, that doesn't have these relationships with police, that's not going to be accused of favoritism in any way, right? To prosecute the case. So that's a policy I put in place, consistent with recommendations by ACLU, NAACP, a bunch of civil rights groups, is that if something like that happens in Washtenaw County, right, we would absolutely seek the appointment of a special prosecutor to prosecute that case.
How would you think for them to go about that? Like, I'm telling you, like, if you the one coming from outside, you came to Wayne County or something like that, how would you think about prosecuting that?
I mean, look, I'll say this. I generally don't talk about cases from other jurisdictions. I don't have all the facts. I don't have all the evidence. But from what I saw on that video, from what I saw, there is really no two ways about that, right? You do not get to shoot somebody for saying, I curse you in the name of Jesus, and having a pot of boiling water on the stove. I mean, you just don't, right? I don't see, from the video that I saw, any two ways about that. It was absolutely horrific. I just don't have the words, and I'm tired of trying to find the words to describe this stuff. From George Floyd, back to Trayvon Martin. I mean, you go on and on and on. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. And things like that, just like George Floyd's murderer was successfully prosecuted,
What would we have to do?
Need to be prosecuted.
What would we have to do for that person to never be a police officer anywhere? Because that's what I think should happen.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're not doing. They get a break, or they can't work in this county or some shit like that. They go work in another county, like some shit like that. Some weird fucking.
You put your finger on a really important point, which is my understanding is that officer had actually had a variety of previous disciplinary measures at other departments, and it happens too frequently that law enforcement officers are able to just move from department to department, right? They get fired from one place for misconduct. They're able to go to another place and start over again. And that sometimes leads to murders, right? And there's legislation. There's a law that's been proposed actually that would create a statewide database.
Who the fuck I got to talk to? You sound like I got to talk to legislators for all this shit. Who are they?
Yeah, so
you know
who are local legislators?
Yeah, who they?
So in the Senate, in Washtenaw County, we've got Jeff Irwin and Sue Shink. Those are our two state senators. And
either of them black?
Neither one of them is black.
Damn.
In the state House of Representatives, we have Jason Morgan, Felicia Brabeck, Carrie Reinegans, Jennifer Conlin,
Felicia
Brabeck,
yeah.
Jimmy Wilson Jr.
He asked if Felicia was black.
Felicia black?
Felicia is black, yes.
Get me in with her.
Shout out Felicia.
Get me in with her.
As is Jimmy Wilson. So
can you get me in with Felicia?
So I want to know Felicia.
I can make recommendations.
You get her to sit right there.
That you got to ask her.
Felicia,
Jimmy Wilson is, because we're in Ipsy Township right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Wilson is the representative for this area.
Jimmy Black.
He is.
Jimmy. Good. Nah, I ain't gonna lie. I'm like one of those people. I really want to talk to you because I'm for my people. I want to educate people, and I really want to know.
Yep.
Because we even talk like the black people, they getting like fucked over like tremendously more. Out of curiosity, sheriff wise, who you support?
Supporting Derek Jackson.
Derek Jackson?
Yep.
Damn, I thought you was dire to the heart, nigga. Damn, you put a fake one on me.
I'm friends with both of them, but we've endorsed and are supporting Derek Jackson.
Cool. Out of curiosity, why Derek out of the other two people? Like we had Kim McGeesa right there too.
Yeah. Well, so the reason that we're supporting Derek is because I worked with Derek for the last 4 years or so. Mm-hmm. And from my perspective, every time that I work with Derek, he's done everything right. We've worked together on expungements. We worked together to build out programs that are off-ramps to the criminal justice system, even pre-arrest. So people are dealing with a behavioral health issue, mental health issue. They can get connected to services and not even have charges filed, right? Which is, you talk about building those off-ramps. That's about as early as you can get. He took the lead in that. He's somebody that, has done a lot of work on community violence interruption. Again, I think we're fortunate in this county to have great choices this election. But, from my perspective, when somebody has done everything the right way, and from what I've seen with Derek, from how I've worked with Derek, he has, that's somebody that I can't go against. And
let me ask you this. I did kind of ask you this at dinner, but I want to get it on camera. So basically, black people, we get arrested. I mean, you're the prosecutor office. You see us way more than fucking white people or any other fucking people. What do you think we have to do to change that? And what do you think needs to be done to change that?
I'd say that there's a number of things, but one of the things that we did in the prosecutor's office is we tried to take a close look, and we we got a grant from the ACLU to work with data scientists at the University of Michigan to try to figure out, when we're charging cases, right? Are we charging black people more for the same type of behavior than white people, right? And so we did that study, and really found kind of not really that once it gets to our office, we're treating people mostly. There's some disparities. I'm not gonna overlook the minor disparities that we did found, but for the most part, people are being treated the same regardless of race. Now, there's a lot more black people that come into the system that are arrested in the first place, that are referred to our office in the first place. That's undeniable. And I think that what's really important for the next sheriff, and both Derek and Alicia have committed to this, and I think that's really important, is to do the same type of study with law enforcement data to figure out, okay, why is it that the prosecutor's office gets 4.1 times the number of referrals for black people than for white people in this county, which is what our study concluded. Is that because of traffic stops, right? Of black people being pulled over disproportionately and coming in on minor offenses? Is it, on the other hand, because of calls for service, where you might say, well, what are the police supposed to do? if they get a domestic violence call, for example. We just don't know. I don't have that data. But the first step is to really drill down into it and figure out like what is driving this disparity. Are there practices that any of us can
So you're
put
basically saying
in
you don't know
place?
yet.
No, because you really have to. I mean, we know that it's true, right? And I didn't need a study to show me that either, right? You know, I didn't need a study to show me that there's about 4 times as many Black people that come into the system as white people. You go in the courtroom, watch court. Everybody, like, it's clear, right? Anybody can see it, but you need to really drill down and not be afraid to look in the mirror and make course corrections when necessary. But the first step is to be transparent, to look at your own data, and at that point, we can identify solutions.
What's your favorite color?
Favorite color, blue.
All right, cool. What's your favorite food?
I'd say nachos.
Nachos.
Good
All right,
nachos, though. Not that stuff with like the weird like you know the yellow ooze stuff on it. Like good nachos that are baked. They got some good meat on it. Jalapenos.
I'm finna go to New York. Is that pizza overrated?
Detroit pizza is better than New York pizza, hands down. New York pizza is good. It is overrated. Now, what I'll say is like there's pizza on every corner in New York City, right? And there's some really, really good pizza places.
Yeah.
But it's a city of 8 million people, so of course they're going to have some good pizza places. But for my money, Detroit pizza is far better top to bottom than New York pizza, and I'll probably piss a lot of New York people off with that. But that's how I feel.
Best place to go in New York City to eat, or the best place you used to eat at. Be like, oh yeah, this is my spot. This is my. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go there right now.
Look. I was a teacher when I was there, so I didn't have very much money at all. So I wasn't going to any of the fancy restaurants.
I want them broke spots. Them broke spots you going in, look raggedy, $2 get you a whole meal. Something like that.
Yep. So I'm going to tell you where I ate a lot. I lived up at 146 and Broadway. Upper Harlem. It's called Hamilton Heights, right? And there was a Mexican place that was a couple blocks away from me called Jesus Taco. I would get that on my walk back from the subway. I'd be working late at school, take the subway home. I just stop in there. Great food. I don't know if it still exists, man. I'm going to be honest, but it was really good and really cheap.
Every time I see you, you're dapper down like to the suit. Like
man, it's a work day, man. So
what's
that's
good sense. What's your favorite suit? Or like your favorite brand? Do you have a brand, or you just?
Nah, I just wear suits that I. You
don't got a brand like Tom Ford or
no. I'm not all that into clothes. I just need the look for court and everything like that.
Facts.
All right, for sure. I don't want to make you look.
I actually believe that it's perspective, if not blatant racism, that equates to us being prosecuted more. I think it's important for teachers, lawyers, anyone who can to be hired from the neighborhoods that these children are coming from, just so they can have more heart-to-heart understanding. I want to ask you are you aware of any
places? My deep-ass question. This nigga gotta go. Don't do this nigga like this. Don't do this nigga like this. He gonna be like, these niggas took me for a whole fucking hour. I think I have to go. Like, don't do this nigga like this.
I was just saying, like, are there any like processes like in place that can hire people that come from these places?
Yeah, I am kind of pissed. I'm pissed. That I ain't gonna.
Intentional work is there. People are people aware of that problem? Is that intentional work?
People are aware of that problem, and you need to find creative ways of doing it. Which largely involves, I think, recruiting from the community and trying to get a sense for who wants to stay here and live in the community they serve. And I think it's really, really important that we do that. And I want to say a couple things about this because it's a really important point. Public servants should be able to live in the community that they serve, right? Now, you can't make it a requirement. There's a state law which says you can't make it a requirement.
Are you for real?
Yeah, there's a state law which says that. So,
damn.
Okay. But nevertheless, the other thing that is going on, especially in Washtenaw County, one of the biggest issues that we have here is housing prices, right? And if you are going to be taking a position as a public servant, right, you're not getting rich off of that. And you should be able to afford to live, afford rent, afford to be able to buy a home in the community that you serve. And right now, teachers, cops, firefighters, even my own lawyers are getting priced out of the community, right? So we've really got to do something about housing prices because it matters. It really matters if you know that this is like something that's going on in your neighborhood, right? And you know like where it's happening. Just by way of example, if something happens across the street from a school, I want people to know that's across the street from a school, right? That's important. So we've got to do something about housing prices. And then I think because that's state law, we can't require people to live in the community, but it's always better. And we got great people that live elsewhere, and that's their choice. That's fine. But we need to be making more of an intentional effort to ensure across government that we're recruiting, that we're providing opportunity to people that live in the community they wish to serve.
You got kids?
I do not.
All right, cool. Well, out of curiosity, family, everybody got a mom and stuff like that. How do you separate your personal life, your family life, dating life from your work?
I probably don't do as good a job as I can, as I should, right? I'm going to be honest with that. That's something that I've been told really is a weakness of mine. I think about work pretty much constantly.
Shit, you be giving niggas life. Hopefully you do. I ain't gonna lie. Like, that's really the main reason why I want to interview.
Right.
Just because, like, I don't know, I want to see from my people. And if, God forsake, if I ever see you in one life in your workplace, it'd be like, oh, I feel a little bit more comfortable around this nigga.
Well, I hope that when I see you in the workplace, you're coming in for an internship, right? So if you're interested,
Nigga, no.
He said,
not you, or you know, or next time.
Huh?
He said, I'm in the field when shit get real.
I'm in the field when shit get real.
Yeah.
Like, I ain't gonna lie to you.
Well,
that's really why I wanted to see you.
I don't want that to happen. Or the next time we can do an interview
Shit, look
in
at the
our
data.
office, right?
All right,
So
next interview, shit. Wait, you gonna get elected? That's kind of unfair. You ain't running against nobody. Damn.
No.
I guess hopefully you good. You must be good at your job.
It's So I'm unopposed. I am on the August 6th ballot, but there's no other choice. The Democratic
Vote for
primary.
Mario, Dark Side. I'm going against Eli. I'm putting it on this. I just want to put it on this. Just go like this.
Obvious
vote. Yeah.
That's an obvious vote.
That's an obvious vote.
We know who we're voting for.
What, you gonna vote for this? You gonna vote for him?
Hell yeah, nigga. What the fuck you know that this man doing about fucking prosecuting niggas?
What? I know niggas. I know niggas. You don't know niggas.
You don't know the law.
I know niggas. As long as I know my people, I know y'all needs and wants.
Bro, you get him, he'll Google the law. He like, bro, can you help me? He'll Google the law in front of you. Like, yeah, let me figure it out.
Look, when I get elected, you can be my concierge. You can counsel me.
Okay, well,
do it like that. And then if you get in, I can counsel you.
Okay.
All right, cool. See, we got a deal. See, I got a deal going on in the prosecutor's office. Y'all niggas don't even know about.
Bullshit.
Dark Side, we out.